Shares of Intel under pressure today after President Trump urges for CEO Lip-Bu Tan to resign, saying in a Truth Social post that, quote, the CEO is highly conflicted and that he must resign immediately as there is no other solution. Lip-Bu Tan was named Intel's CEO back in March, taking over for Pat Gelsinger. With the president targeting Intel's C-suite, it adds another hurdle for the company amid its turnaround efforts. For more on the rocky terrain for the chip company, let's bring in Bernstein Managing Director and Senior Analyst Stacy Rasgon. Stacy, just your reaction this morning as you're reading this post. What was going through your head, and how'd you sort of make sense of it?
It's hard to make sense of it. This was pretty much my reaction when I saw it. I'd say like there's a lot of tech and semiconductor CEOs out there that have made, and maybe it's too bad that it has to come to this, but they've made personal relationships with Trump and maintain those. And look, Intel and Lip-Bu Tan really have not, right? We haven't seen him up on stage with them. He wasn't in Saudi Arabia a month or two back when all the AI news was going on. So he just hasn't made that connection. And now in terms of the tweet or the truth or whatever you want to call it this morning, I mean, Lip-Bu's connections to China are not new and they're not unknown. And I don't even think they're really conflicts. He's part of a big venture capital firm that he started, and they've had many investments in China for many, many years. None of this is a secret. It's well known. And I don't think it's really a conflict, but at the same time, like it's given the nature of this administration and everything else, it's not a great look, I suppose, especially when you now are drawing the specific attention of Trump. It's just not a great thing maybe to have his crosshairs on your back. But yeah, it was not something that I really had on my bingo card this morning, like that's for sure.
I don't think any of us did, Stacy. And I'm curious, the turnaround efforts at Intel and Lip-Bu's role in them. I mean, how integral is he to what they're trying to do? And I guess essentially him staying in that seat, right? How much does that matter to the company?
I mean, it is like very important because you have to remember, like he started in March. He was coming in like kind of as a white knight to replace the former CEO, Pat Gelsinger, who was let go in December. Lip-Bu has a plan. It's kind of a painful plan. They're laying off, and there's some questions about the sustainability of maybe this is one of the issues. There are some questions about the sustainability of their investment path and process development path in the U.S. But like he's got a plan, he's putting it into place, and if you were to argue that he should not be there anymore, like who actually takes his place? Like it was hard enough to get him in that role. Like who do you convince to come in, given everything that's going on now with this administration, to replace him? And then like what are the other options internally? I mean, you have the CFO, Dave Zinsner, who was acting CEO for a while during that interim period, and I'd say Intel historically has not done all that well when run out of the finance arm. Do you try to bring Pat back? Would that even be an option? Would it be desirable now? Like, I don't even know. So like, if he's not there, if they decided for whatever reason that the best thing to do was to not have him, so I don't know what they do. Like it causes a lot of uncertainty. Yeah.
And Stacey, I want to broaden this out because I don't think Intel is the only chip company that might be confused by what the president's saying today. The president also saying yesterday that they'll be putting a tariff of approximately 100% on chips and semiconductors, but then saying that if you're building in the U.S. or planning to build in the U.S., then maybe you're exempt. How do you make sense of that language? What are you getting out of that?
It is tough. So like, he made some comments yesterday, and that's what we have to go on. This is all part of what was called a 232 investigation into semiconductors and other things. And we actually haven't seen the report from the 232 investigation. So once we see that, I think we can start to be a little more prescriptive about what the actual impacts will be. Like right now, we're just trying to decipher his comments. And look, this is Trump. He makes comments all the time, and sometimes they lack detail and nuance, right? And so we don't actually know like what it means. What he did say, you're right. He said there's going to be 100% tariffs on semis, but if you're building here in the U.S., then you'll be exempt. And there's a bunch of stuff. But there's questions. What does building in the U.S. mean? How much do you have to build? Like, what's the time frame? Is he talking about semiconductors? Is he talking about the end devices? Will there be tariffs on just raw semiconductors coming into the U.S., which is actually not that much? We don't import that much. Or is it tariffs on semiconductors in devices? Can customers still use, TSMC manufacturing capacity in Taiwan with no tariff because TSMC is building a lot in the US? Like, I don't know. I don't know exactly how to parse this yet. We will have to wait until we see the actual report. I think, though, the reason the stocks are up is it does look like there will be some loopholes or some reprieves from the blind 100% tariffs. And, there are semiconductor companies and other like tech companies that are investing a lot in the US and trying to build here. And so I think there's a perception, which hopefully at least there's some truth to it, that there will be some reprieve from this. We won't know for sure. We won't be able to really be specific about it until we actually see what is going on when they actually file the regulations.
And so I know this then makes the final question sort of hard to answer, right? But as an investor in the space, is there a winner or loser from sort of what we just laid out, or who's kind of best positioned then given that?
I mean, like the knee-jerk reaction, you'll say, look, companies, at least on the semiconductors, the companies that are actually actively building here, presumably would be, perceived as relative winners. So, I mean, you got companies like Texas Instruments, for example, who are building a significant amount of capacity in the U.S. That is their plan, and they've been delivering on it, and there's more to come. You have companies like NVIDIA. Like NVIDIA doesn't build chips, like they're fabless, they outsource manufacturing, but they're investing a lot of money in the AI supply chain. At least they're giving headlines, so you have that. I mean, you've got fabless companies like AMD or Qualcomm or whatever that actually can use in TSMC in Arizona. And there is a read of the comments that suggests maybe they could continue to use the Taiwan stuff tariff-free. Like we don't know yet, but like maybe. You've got the semi-caps. Like again, if we have to build more capacity here in the U.S., at the margin, that's probably incrementally positive for the U.S. semi-cap players. So those are the kinds of like knee-jerk reactions that, I mean, in some sense are probably going on today. And again, we'll know more like when we get more specifics.
All right, Stacy, we're going to have to leave it there. We're going to have you back once we know more. How about that?
Yeah,
Thank
you bet.
for joining
You
us.
bet.